number 17. Can you guys believe that we are on hour 17 already? It's just crazy. So in step 17, we will be estimating the lifetime value, or LTV, of an acquired customer. So hello again, disciplined entrepreneurs. I am Chelsea Sposit from Cleveland, Ohio. I've combined my knowledge of medicine with my business skill set to specialize in building successful medical practices catering to cosmetic and wellness services. I am currently at university pursuing a degree in neuroscience to better understand the scientific aspects of the mind-body connection. My goal is to create a protocol for chronic illness patients using a self-acupressure technique called EFT to alleviate the physical symptoms caused by a psychosomatic response. I want to give patients the option to heal themselves by healing their mind. I am very grateful to have been a part of class number 1 for healthcare innovation at MIT and Harvard Medical School in 2018. So the space that I want to hold today for this presentation is a quote from Rumi, who many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. His quotes are very popular, but what many people don't know is that he's actually a Sufi poet and philosopher, and Sufis are a sect of Islam, and their poetry is absolutely beautiful. So the quote that we are going to hold with us while we do this presentation is, "Live life as if everything is rigged in your favor." And I think that that's perfect, because we're calculating a lifetime value of a customer, you know, and we're saying to live life, and everything is rigged, everything's conspired, everything is set up to work exactly in our favor. So if we put in the effort and do this right and do the calculations, you know, Rumi says, I think we're on track. So let's go from there. All right. So what is the lifetime value of a customer? The lifetime value of a customer is the total income received from one customer for their length of their business with your company. So what do we need to know in order to actually calculate or estimate this? Basically, your numbers. The book states to refer back to your results for step number 15 with design a business model, and step number 16, set your pricing framework. But like I was saying at the before I started the slideshow, is really just all your numbers, they come into play here. All of your numbers from all 16 steps preceding to this, all your market research, everything to help you determine what this is. So, and for today's presentation, I am continuing to base my business model on a service rather than a product, to demonstrate the interchangeability of the 24 steps. So just imagine you are the owner of a private medical practice, and you are specializing in cosmetic services and need to know how you are going to, how long, how the customer is going to come back, why they're going to come back, when they're going to come back, how much they're going to spend, all of that information. And the service I've chosen, Spotlight, is VeloShape, an FDA-approved treatment for cellulite and circumference reduction. This is a non-invasive procedure, and it's being used worldwide currently. So we will walk through steps of calculating the LTV of a customer, such as VeloShape. When calculating the lifetime value of a customer, include the following common inputs. So you want to start with a one-time revenue. How much did they pay for their initial purchase with you? Next is the reoccurring revenue. So do they need more than one treatment? Is it a one payment, but they get a series of 6 treatments? You know, do they buy a package and get a discount? You know, what goes into how many treatments they are getting once they pass that one-time initial purchase. So next we touch on other revenue. So can we upsell them to a larger service? So if they are getting VeloShape and they want to do the back of their thighs, but they also want to do their butt, you know, can you upsell them at that time for a larger, either a larger package, you know, adding on more areas, or even like considering like an add-on service, you know, anything that you can do to increase your revenue. So the next is gross margin for each revenue stream. So this actually equals the price of your product minus production costs. But the book states to remember not to include sales, R&D, or administrative expenses when calculating. Next, we want to look at the retention rate. So what percentage of new customers return for a second paid service? So, you know, you get them in the door, you've accomplished that step, but how are you going to keep them coming back? What is your plan for that? And what percentage of new customers do come back? That is a very, very important number, because, I mean, that tells you everything from, you know, your standard operating procedure being off if they're not coming back, to your help not being properly trained, or just, you know, not customer friendly, or your services, you know, are not up to par. So this is a very, very, especially when you are dealing with services, this is an important step. The next thing to consider is life of the product. So when dealing with a service, it would be life of the service. So how long do their results last? You know, if they're getting a cellulite reduction, how long can you expect it to last? Is it going to last 6 months? Is it going to last a year? Well, really, that depends on their lifestyle. You know, if they end up getting pregnant and their body is flooded with hormones, it can go any which way. So, but also to maintain realistic expectations, because a lot of times people overpromise things. And so, you know, that goes into how long can they realistically expect to benefit from this treatment, because the body changes daily. I mean, it changes as we age, so you can't promise forever. Next is the repurchase rate. So how likely are they to purchase the service again? When managing a medical spa, when I first started working with this equipment, is our number one complaint was that women had to buy new clothes after their first round of treatment. So they ended up purchasing another package in the same area. It wasn't like they moved to another area, you know, afterwards, which is another important thing. You know, is what are they going to buy next? But going back to the repurchase rate is, you know, are they going to redo that same service because they're so happy with it, versus if they're upset with it, they wouldn't spend their money again. but also what other purchases can they come back for. So the next is the cost of capital for your business. So the cost of capital is essentially the interest rate you will be required to pay to get more money for your new ventures. And next, when it comes to calculating the LTV, I reference both the workbook and the book for this. And honestly, Bill Allett, the author, said that he encourages everyone to review Step 17 in the Disciplined Entrepreneur book for the details on how to estimate the LTV, because there are so many aspects that to it. Like I said before, you have your numbers, but it's sitting down, doing the math, making sure it's correct, making sure you didn't make a simple adding or subtracting mistake, and just really taking your time with it. But overall, the formula that you see on the screen right now, which is present value equals profit over parentheses 1 plus cost of capital rate, close parentheses, to the T, which would represent time, time passed power. So just, it is a long process. It's going to take time. I didn't want to go through it step by step. It would definitely take a while, and I'm on summer break, so no math today. So the book actually emphasizes that there are important considerations even further after calculating the LTV. And what it says is there are many other secondary factors to consider when determining the lifetime value of your customer. Even if your LTV is too low for your product to be viable, you should consider whether these elements are correct first. Then consider whether you can positively impact your LTV with some adjustments. So number one, the business model decision is very important. Your choice of business model can greatly affect your LTV and the amount of revenue you earn. Reoccurring revenue models, such as a subscription model, often increase revenue but require additional capital from investors up front, and thus have a very high cost of capital. A one-time charge up front can reduce the amount of capital you need to get started, but it is not as lucrative as an ongoing basis. Number two, LTV is about profit, not revenue. Your gross margin and cost of capital rates are integral to determining an accurate LTV. The most common mistakes entrepreneurs make on LTV calculations is they simply tally up the revenue streams, but it is the profit that actually matters. Number three, overhead costs aren't negligible. To simplify the LTV calculations, overhead is excluded, but for this account, the LTV must be substantially higher than the COCA, which stands for cost of customer acquisition. These overhead costs, which may include R&D and administrative expenses, are not included when determining the gross margin of a product. These costs can be spread out over total units of a product or service sold. So as volume sold goes up, the overhead cost per item goes down. So I will say I have, with service industry or service-based businesses, I've actually kind of noticed that my overhead tends to go up as volume goes up, which is definitely something maybe I should have focused on more. I did start working on it, But especially in a medical practice, when you have a lot of disposables, and you do try to buy in bulk to reduce the amount of cost, sometimes it's just inevitable that your overhead is going to rise, just based on you have to supply more products, whether it's cotton or gauze or cryogen gas, anything that is something you use on a daily basis. The more customers, the more patients you see, obviously you're going to go through more. You don't necessarily want to cut corners too much, because you still want to give them, the service that they're paying for. So just that's a little side note. Number 4, gross margins make a big difference. Wrapping your lower margin core product with a high margin add-on product will substantially help your LTV. Sometimes a business model is not sustainable until the company develops an additional revenue stream. Number 5, retention rates are very important as well. The longer you can keep a customer, the better LTV becomes. This is one of a few levers you can easily control to improve the profitability of your business. A small increase in customer retention rates will mean significant improvements in your cumulative profits. I definitely agree that this is a very important step. Like I said before, you need to make sure that your staff is giving the best customer service, especially like the front staff, because that's who everyone sees first. That's who they hear on the phone. That's their first impression. And you really don't want to miss that first initial opportunity to make a good impression. So if your retention rates are really low, that is the first place that I would look. But I would say advise with caution and not to go in pointing fingers, because a lot of times the front staff, is not doing something that you would like, but you didn't necessarily take the time out to train them, on the procedures, which is why, it is very important to have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, so that even if you are a small business, you want everything as standard and as structured as possible, so that, you can hire a new receptionist or a new consultant, and, besides your personal interaction, you can literally give them a guide that trains them and tells them like what their duties are, makes it very, very clear, how to act, how to answer the phones, be as specific as possible. That alone, even if you give them a bad service, if you have that great customer service and that rapport with them, you're going to retain customers so much longer, and you're going to, it's like a domino effect. I mean, you're going to get other patients or other customers, and it's a very important step. So number 6, finding additional real upselling opportunities can be very attractive. Upselling additional products to your customers can significantly improve your profit. Make sure to drive upselling based on the needs of your persona, not just to improve your numbers. Companies that over upsell can lose track of what value they are creating for their customers, and can also lose the trust and confidence of the customer. So I know we touched on this a lot today. Not only is, again, we're going back to the importance of the persona, but how you interact with them and this rapport you have, and when you talk from a place of being genuine and using, especially with like a service, especially with like a medical service that's cosmetic, it's elective, people come in and they're willing to pay, and they're they want the service and they want it done that day, but they're just not a candidate. You just know that they're not going to be happy. You understand that they have unrealistic expectations. Nothing you're going to be able to do is going to be able to please them because they're just unhappy. And you can't be afraid to turn people down. You can't live in that lack mentality. And it's not you're turning them down, you're explaining to them, like, listen, this may not be your best option. And if you can't provide a substitute with, say, another service or another option, give them a referral. Guarantee, give them a referral to somebody or some other service or some other product that you think better fits their life. And I mean, they will be so grateful. I've had patients ask me, okay, well, what other services then can I get here? Just because it's been so helpful to them. So, don't always just go in for the kill with the sale. Talk to your customers like they're human beings, and listen, and most importantly, listen to your customers. It's going to give you a better understanding for your persona, and you're going to be able to apply that to every aspect of your business. So in summary, love this little math madness going on with the comic taken from the LTV chapter in the book. Don't worry, entrepreneur math is much simpler. If the LTV doesn't equal 3 times the COCA, none of this matters. So the summary in the book states, the lifetime value of an acquired customer calculation is the profit that a new customer will provide on average. Discounted to reflect the high cost of acquiring capital that a startup faces, it is important to be realistic, not optimistic, when calculating LTV, and to know the underlying drivers behind LTV so you can work to increase it. You will be comparing the LTV to the COCA. An LTV COCA ratio of 3-to-1 or higher is what you will be aiming for. And sure that we will touch more on this ratio down in step COCA, or cost of customer acquisition. So thank you all again for joining me today or tonight, wherever you are. And later on, I will be presenting step 19 and am currently available for a short Q&A session during this live event. If you would like to connect with me after the 24/24 event, I can be reached at the LinkedIn address shown below on the screen.